Hello and welcome to the Daily Wrap Weather Report coming to you from Tokyo. And Beth, it's nice and sunny at the moment, but everyone is talking typhoons, and not just typhoons, super typhoons, because Typhoon Hagibis,
I think.
Hagibis
yeah.
is on its way to the World Cup, and that could have a really big impact on the tournament. It's a massive typhoon. Obviously, I suppose you don't get called super typhoon for nothing, but it's off the southern region of Japan at the moment in the Pacific Ocean, and it's got winds of 200 kilometres an hour, and at the moment it is forecast to strike Tokyo on Saturday afternoon. Now that's going to play a little bit of havoc with some games. Beth, walk us through the possibilities of what this super typhoon could do to the World Cup?
Yeah, there are a lot of concerns about some really important matches this weekend. Originally, it was just thought that some matches on the southern sort of islands would be affected, so that would be Wales, Uruguay, and Ireland, Samoa, which could turn out to be pretty, important ones. But then, with the direction of the storm kind of moving a bit more north, even bigger pool matches like England, France on Saturday, and Japan, Scotland on Sunday, both of those in Yokohama, could be affected. And whether that means moving them to indoor venues or whether that means having to cancel games and give out 0-all draws, it really could shape the quarterfinal.
Yes, well, that's the big problem, Beth, is that if part of the World Cup rules are that if a game is cancelled on the day, that it is a 0-all draw and the points are shared. Now, this is the last round before the finals, and a lot of teams still need 4 or 5 points to make the finals, so 2 points won't be good enough. Ireland are playing Samoa. If they get that match played and they can manage to beat Samoa, which you'd think Japan and Scotland both need to win that game to get what they want out of it to get into the finals. So I think unofficially we're hearing that they would move these games. I don't think that they're going to be cancelling games, but we don't know yet.
Yeah, anyone in Australia would know cyclone season. You watch those graphs and sometimes, these storms escalate and just turn into heavy rainfall. Sometimes they turn into really destructive storms. And we saw one at the start of the tournament that affected a lot of teams, including the Wallabies, arriving in Japan, but didn't, manage to wash out any matches or anything like that. So, everyone will be keeping a really close eye on those radars the next couple of days and any updates about that.
Yeah, so Australia's game won't be affected. The storm won't have hit Japan by that time, but they could be. They're heading down to Shizuoka to play that game, and they may need to stay down in that region, and all the people who go down to follow that game may have to do likewise. It's all a bit of an unknown at this point. I guess we'll have more updates coming later in the week. Beth, onto the footy. Wallabies yesterday talking about the prospect of playing Georgia, which it's a really rare occurrence, isn't it? This is the very first game against Georgia that the Wallabies ever played, and they're sort of trying to suss out what sort of style opponents they'll be.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird one, as you say. Georgia don't seem like they're a minnow in a sense, but they play all the Six Nations teams quite often, being up in Europe and a lot of the European teams. But because they're not, a tier 1 nation, they don't tend to come to the Southern Hemisphere very often. It's a rare chance for the Wallabies to play them for the first time. I mean, on the flip side, they have seen them play a little bit, and this is their last pool match, so they've seen a bit of a trend. And Sekope Kepa was talking yesterday about the dangers of the Georgian scrum and how they're very scrappy, and I think the term he used was they're tough buggers who don't take much from anyone, so they'll be absolutely put to the test.
Yeah, well, they've got a little bit of intelligence there from Drew Mitchell, who played with a few Georgians, including Mamuka Gorgodza at Toulon. Gorgodzilla. So, and he had Sekope Kepa had some nice things to say, or some funny things to say about what Drew had given them as far as intel.
And just hearing from Drew and those guys that played with him at Toulon, they're tough buggers, and and they don't really take any crap from anybody, and which is fair enough. And that's where they grew up, and that's where their culture and everything. So, but it means it's no different for us this weekend. We've got to again, like you alluded to, start well, and it starts up front, and we've got a great opportunity to do that this weekend.
Another point of conversation with the Wallabies is the high tackle region. We spoke yesterday about Michael Cheika finally kind of conceding, we've got to have a look at it. The guys who have to work hardest are the big tall units like Rory Arnold and Adam Coleman, all those second rows and locks. We're seeing when you're built at 208 centimetres tall, your shoulders are already at someone else's head height. So Rory Arnold spoke yesterday about having to work harder there, didn't he?
Yeah, and I think it's a big danger, as you say. It's not just that they start at a big height. There's no kind of leeway for guys slipping into these tackles and, that contact going higher. So they've got to be careful in the initial contact, but also the direction of which the ball carrier is coming as well. So there's a lot of factors to think about in a millisecond in a rugby game.
And Rory Arnold spoke about that's a really difficult balance to strike when you're trying to affect a dominant tackle near a ruck.
It is mainly all those taller boys that are getting pinged for those high shots. Look, as locks and taller men, we just have to focus on, getting our shots down, because at the end of the day, the rule is, no contact with the head, and it's for player safety. So at the end of the day, we want, the players' safety is the most important thing. So it's just up to us to get our tackles down and keep working on that.
They'll want to figure that out they talked about working it out in this game against Georgia, and then certainly by the quarterfinals. Some big games to be played as we speak. The Wales-Fiji is still ahead of us. If Fiji can manage to knock off Wales, that'll do Australia a great deal of favours as far as the finals calculations goes. And Japan, of course, apart from Super Typhoon watch, are a buzz with World Cup fever, and their team doing very well, on track to play in the quarterfinals if everything goes right. As you can hear, it's a very busy Tokyo. Wallabies will be leaving Tokyo tomorrow, heading down to Shizuoka for a captain's run ahead of the Georgian game on Friday night, and we'll bring you more updates then.